We are live. Hello once again. My name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We got a great show for everyone. Welcome to C9K / well, you know what the deal is. Welcome.
Up with a new tagline. I was expecting something, you know, C9K in the club.
I got made fun of
in the tub.
There you go. Yeah, I got made fun of for wearing military green right before the show, so I got a little frazzled. Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day.
That's because I am guilty of that. I told you to wear green because it was St. Patty's Day, and then I looked at my wardrobe and realized I do not own a single piece of green clothing.
What a guy. At least I got Grogu in the background celebrating with me. So
that's true. I can see it.
Yeah. Speaking of, so yeah, welcome to Double Tool Time C9K. We got Pulumi and Kubeshark at the end. So a little Steve and me battling it out for who can give the best demo. We have a couple CVEs, a great hot take, some controversy, and it's only been a week. We were back here last Friday, this Friday, and there's like a lot of news. So pretty awesome. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. So 2 Fridays from now, and I forget what are we demoing in 2 weeks?
To TBD. We'll work it out by the end.
Okay, we'll work it out by the end, but we'll post next week so you guys know. But yeah, 2 weeks. We'll see you again. What's going on in your world before we get into the general news? Any big updates? I know the CNCF is having our first in-person meeting in Toronto next week. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's SysDig and ChainGuard talking about distroless images. And yeah, I think it's pretty.
I will be there.
Yeah, pretty sweet. There's some rumors that there might be some other people going, so join if you can make it. Any other news to share?
My life has been boring this week. Boring.
All right, well, with that, let's get into it.
All right. America fixes cybersecurity once again.
Yeah, or tries to. So this fact sheet got announced March 2nd. It's been a long time coming. This just came up on my radar again. It's just so high level. I mean, yeah, if you go down, we must rebalance, we must realign. It's so just kind of ridiculous.
Let's find the stupidest one.
There were a couple things that scared me a little bit. That one right there, shifting liability for software products and services to promote secure development practices. What do they mean by that? Do they mean that if I knowingly publish a vulnerability in my software and it, takes down a Fed server, that I'm going to be held liable? What is the standard for liability here?
It's not clear at all. That's funny you picked on that one. I thought the one right above it was ridiculous, where we will make malicious cyber actors incapable of threatening the national security or public safety of the United States. Okay, what? How?
Yeah, strong words. Not allowed to back it up.
We're going to take them out the knees.
Yeah, I do think that part of the whole infrastructure bill is this. Like a lot of people think cybersecurity, we think Google and cloud and all that stuff. I think really what they're trying to focus on is the oil pipelines, all of the different POC mechanisms that you have to control, automated across at scale, doing that in a way that is off the grid, that can't be tampered with, that because a lot of the times too, in a detached environment, people tend to take it for granted. It's like, oh, it's detached, it's harder to infect, but then once somebody gets access, it's lights out. So yeah, I think it's just bringing some of those older systems up to speed. And I remember when I was talking with a customer, this is back in CloudOps days, and he was working in Texas. He's like, how do I get some of these oil refineries and stuff like that to get off virtual machines or modernize? Like, they just don't want to do it. There's no incentive. There's no reason. It works. It's like, yeah, it works, but is it the best way? Is it the most secure way? That's the big challenge. So I think that that's where the US wanted to go. It's a one-page fact sheet that I hope somewhat achieves it, but we'll see. It's
I
interesting.
don't know. It ticked the box for somebody at the White House.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it shows that they have a strategy. I'm interested to see any updates on the S-bomb front this year. I'm getting constant asks about S-bombs, and I'm like,
I know. It's ridiculous. It's a buzzword.
yeah, it is.
I imagine you'll have a hot take about it soon.
Yeah, that's a good point. Steve's on the hot seat today, so stay tuned. The next thing, I think we have two products we wanted to talk about. The first one being Google is announcing an open source service weaver. Yeah. Framework for writing distributed applications. Go.
I almost have a hot take on this, right?
Okay.
Because the problem statement is the difficulty in writing microservice applications. You know, the beauty of microservice being independent tech stacks all communicating, but they don't like it because they want you to write it as a modular monolith using Service Weaver. They're implying that there is a problem with microservice applications. Severely impacted our ability to make cross-binary changes, new flag-like features, et cetera, et cetera. They're basically trying to convince us that there's a huge problem with this architecture, and that Service Weaver is a framework for the best of both worlds, the development velocity of a monolith with the scalability, security, and fault tolerance of microservices. I am not at all convinced of this, because it looks like all you're really doing is using like writing in Go and adding in it's encouraging a highly decoupled monolith. That's what it looks like on a first read, which is like, if you were a good monolith programmer in the first place in Java or whatever, that's what you were doing anyway. Now, obviously this got out of hand. Spaghetti code became rampant in most monoliths, depending on the size, but I'm not convinced. It feels like we're devolving with that.
Yeah, devolving. I was going to say that we talked about the container snapshots feature that got brought in and how it mimics some of the virtual machine features. This just feels like it's the same. It's solving the same problem. It's trying to get those people who are stuck in virtual machines who write monoliths to be like, here is the smallest step that you can take towards containers. Like this feels like it's solving the human problem of containers, not the actual technological one, right?
Oh, that's funny. Okay, I don't know. I think that's a positive take on it compared to mine, because it's being presented as if you're already doing microservices and you're finding the complexity of it a problem to manage, and it's saying, hey, Service Weaver and write a monolith. Wait, what?
Yep.
Didn't we just spend a fortune getting out of monolith?
Yeah, exactly. What is it? I forget what the law is, but eventually, like, the technological systems always mimic humans in some way, and I think that law applies. It's just after a certain amount of time and people don't want to do it, then you have to bring the technology to them. And we're getting to the point too of container adoption where I think we're starting to get towards the top, and so now you have all these products that are vying for the 1-2% now, right? So I think that's the case, but yeah, we'll see.
It sounds like Conway's Law. Is Conway's Law the one you're thinking of, where
it might be
the resulting software mimics the communication systems that exist within an organization? So if you heavily silo your organization, then your APIs suck.
Yeah, somebody quick Google it and tell me what the deal is. Okay. Yeah, I agree. So that was Google's announcement, and the next one is AWS had an announcement. I think you posted this one.
It's pretty cool. I have the opposing skepticism on this one. So security threats in your business using security analytics with Amazon Open Search Service. My brain immediately went to, is this something that they've done with the Elastic thing that they forked and now they've changed the name to OpenSearch? But I don't know. There wasn't evidence in here to suggest that, but I think probably. But the idea is that it's a unified security analytics and search service. The ultimate, if you come down here and you look at the rule creation, you can create rules like YAML rules that look for anomalous behavior. So in a way, it looks like another OPA, Kyverno, whatever, except it's a rule set. It's a capability to yet another markup language rule set called Sigma that can look for things. The example they give here is the ability to look for the run DLL32, which looks for spontaneous execution of the way malware does these things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think it's cool being able to be portable across SIM tools, though. That's very interesting. I mean, it's basically a massive log aggregator and checker, right? There's no runtime enforcement. There's nothing like that. It's mostly just so you can identify and act on it, right? Which feature-wise, I think that's a great first step. I think that's exactly what you need.
Yeah, I actually think it's pretty cool. I don't know what it's replacing, unless it's being competitive against something like Splunk, would you say? Like where?
Yeah, that's always the tough thing about AWS and cloud platforms in general is whenever you go into these large competitive situations, they just say, hey, you know, we can do all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but you have to go buy and set up 32 different products, right? So it's this,
right.
It's always this like, okay, how much of it is the platform as the basic level and how much of it is, oh, I have to buy 32 different services and it's going to take me a year to set all these up in a meaningful manner. So there's, I don't know. I'm sure it solves some problem. AWS doesn't do these things unless there is somebody that's asking for it, right? So one thing I'll give AWS is they listen to their customers and they act. So
that is true. Yeah. AWS products, like now that I've been to a few reInvents, it's like now I see that half the products come out because they needed it and it actually existed before. And then they finally thought it's polished enough to give it to the rest of the world. Or, yeah, you're right. Because they have a very solid customer success team that feeds directly into the product development, like very, very well. And this who knows which direction this came from, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, last one in the general news. You have the cloud native summary. So Paulo posted.
I in our links section, I put this as yet another state of.
Okay.
This is Paulo's The State of Cloud Native Security report, churned out largely by Unit 42, who does a lot of research and crap. But I went and got it like the hard way. I didn't ask internally for it just to see what kind of hoop you gotta jump through to get it. It didn't seem too offensive because you can say, don't send me any marketing. They give you a very clear opt-out. So that was good. I didn't feel too marketing threatened by it. But it was interesting to see that a lot of this is surveyed internal people who are running through Palo Alto, which is massive. 77% deploying or updating weekly, 38% committing daily, 17 deploying multiple times a day. Okay, that's cool. What I thought was interesting was not that, the other one here. The top incidents, number one was risk introduced early in app development. I thought, oh, okay. I actually thought one of the 2 or 3s would have been number one. Downtime misconfiguration was fifth on the list.
I was going to say downtime due to misconfiguration. I figured that would be higher. Malware, workload images with vulnerabilities or malware. So that's a weird one, the way they phrase it. Vulnerabilities or malware. Vulnerabilities, yeah, but malware, like it's weird to lump those two together for me, right?
Yeah, it's
especially with containers.
It's interesting. It made me want to go get the full. Let's just go get the full report. Maybe want to go get it to go. What is behind this? So it's not a really long report. It's just it's 50% informative, 50% marketing. So worth a look anyway.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. If you take a meta-analysis of these reports, that's where I think you get the real insights to see, 3 years ago, 40% had a DevOps initiative. Now 70% have a DevSecOps initiative. All right, that's pretty cool. We can see where people are moving. Yeah. I think that's where the value is. All right, now we have, you ready? It's going to get spicy. Boom.
Hot take time. This is my hot take on a hot take. It's become super meta. So this is Tanya Janka. Tanya's cool. Let's make it clear. I'm not like trashing Tanya. Tanya is working on the OWASP API top 10 for 2023, last updated 2019, talking about how there's a call for information and data, and how these top 10 things get made. And she stuck a TikTok video last week out, and you can read it, right, which is handy. So I don't have to put the sound on. But she starts talking about, and largely, let me jump forward. She's picking up OWASP. So the biggest risk to web APIs, etc. But she starts complaining about the fact that vendors are getting involved and trying to skew the top 10 based on what they can find, what makes them look good. So unfortunately, it appears that vendors, not all of them, are trying to change the list. And she starts saying, like, if my tool doesn't detect it, therefore it's not a risk. So it shouldn't be on the list. So I'll stop right there because that's the hot take on hers. Right? And it was like, oh boy, I thought some people are not going to be happy with that. So I scroll down. First thing, Jeff Williams, OG OWASP. This is a terrible take. It's like, bam. Some people are into it, but it sparked this sort of big argument about vendor involvement in OWASP top 10s. So hot take on that. Like we can, I'll give you mine first.
Okay.
I think vendor involvement in OWASP top 10s is essential, and half the time is sparked largely by vendors in the first instance because they're doing a lot of research into it. They think there should be an OWASP top 10. Like if you look at the contributors to most of the top 10s, just packed with vendors. And then yet we don't automatically think they suck. So I think that it's nice to like ring a little bit of alarm bell, but I don't think it was, I think it's a little over the top.
Yeah. Do you think that it's up for OWASP or these top 10s to come up with things that haven't happened yet and say, this is a security vulnerability, this is something that you need to guard against, but there hasn't been a massive exploit that's happened? Because APIs have been around for a long time, relatively long time. You'd think that there would be a bunch of data as to what are some of the biggest risks, and that we don't even need to go to vendors. We can just look at different exploits that have happened and say, hey, these are ones with massive impact, right? Like vendors should get involved, but vendors also should be tasked with, hey, bring all of your research to show why these things matter, right? Like to me, that makes sense. Just a little bit of evidence. And then that way, if somebody ever accuses me of being vendor involved, I'm like, no, I'm just following the research. Here it is. Yeah, vendors need to be involved because at the end of the day, like I said, they're the ones that are doing this daily. They understand, they have a lot of insight into different customers that are using their product, which is not necessarily public information, right? So that trade-off is where OWASP really shines, because they get all this information that's aggregated from these top vendors. Just saying no to vendors, you're missing out on that wealth of information.
Yeah,
right?
I think we're kind of agreeing.
Yeah, 100%. But it's just that process that's so painful, right, with OWASP. Well, so I think that's why there's gonna be a big overhaul in these security spaces.
It's funny you talked about real data too. Like I didn't hover on the Jeff Williams comment too long, but what he does say is there was a call for data, yes, but none was collected. So they're like, he's actually criticizing the entire process of revamping the 2023. So he's like, anyway, there's a whole other issue. The link is in the show notes as usual. Feel free to go look at the arguments and get involved in rectifying the OWASP top 10 for API security.
There you go. All right, we're going to get into the crazier stuff now. Yes. WTF, mate?
It's
so. So you actually like copied over one of the links because there's supposed to be the Microsoft link. Oh. Microsoft. I will post it in the chat here for the comments. And I wanted to kick this off because I thought it was really interesting. Microsoft laid off its ethical AI team. Yeah. You copied the LinkedIn one twice, so I think I fixed it in the sheet. He's going to change it. He's going to post it in here. There we go. So Microsoft laid off their ethical AI team. Some of the team, responsible AI teams, which is interesting, especially when you go down and you realize that for every 1% of market share that Microsoft carves into Google, it's worth $2 billion. Just continue reading.
Where?
Yeah. Just Command F for like 2 billion and you'll see it there. And you start to realize why, let's say, being first to market matters more than being proper to market.
Yeah.
Especially in a time when there's let's say smaller investment money floating around. It's not free money like it's been the last 2 years. So I think it is really interesting because most of the concerns I've ever seen around AI and ML are just, oh, it's, has the wrong recommendations. And as you'll see, we'll go into it, the update process is a little skewed. But I thought this was just more of a, I don't necessarily trust AI yet, because there's always somebody in the background, somebody's filtering something. They're going to update the models. So how does it get packaged and shipped is going to be always my question about it. And as you'll see, these things are constantly getting updated and changed. Different teams are taking different approaches, and they're not always accurate. I think the biggest risk is just blindly believing some of these recommendations. And if you've been in the space or a very niche space for a while, you realize the recommendations are, I almost feel like it's like high school teacher level. Like it gives you a good enough feeling for what's going on, but there are some serious issues in some of the recommendations or knowledge that it spews. Anyways, we're going to get into more WTF, but just wanted to bring that up.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, like, was it last week or the week before where we had that article from Microsoft's AI with unhinged, like trying to tell a reporter to leave his wife and spread disinformation, and like, let's just fire the ethics team, man. It was the most unethical AI of them all.
There was a comedian who was talking on YouTube. He's from Ajax, actually, and he said, I went to the ChatGPT and I said, write me an apology letter if I cheated on my girlfriend, and it did that. And then it said, write me an apology letter if I cheated on my girlfriend with her mom, and it said it wouldn't do that. And so it's like, that's where it drew the line. And so I just found it so interesting. I just wonder how those flags get ticked, or who's sitting in the background like, yeah, not this question. This is too far.
So, this is why humans will still be employed.
Yeah, that story goes in the WTF. But so speaking of which, ChatGPT is now getting integrated into your favorite security tools.
Is it?
I was
going to say is integrated into cybersecurity. So it doesn't say is, it says it already is, right? So
yeah,
who has done this? The fact that Orca is the first company mentioned makes me think that they're somehow involved in the article. Armo.
Yeah, I also think it's funny that it says it's integrated, but then it says it's testing. It's like, how does that work? Just because I hook up a couple of APIs does not mean it's integrated, does it?
No, it is not. I can confidently then tell you that Palo Alto is integrated ChatGPT into our offering. You're not going to see it because we're like, does it work? I don't know.
Yeah, this goes back to my hot take last week of, hey, it's great if an AI says, because of this and this and this container is very risky, or this workload is extremely risky. That's great. If you don't know what to do with that information, how do you verify that the AI is correct? You're going to have alert fatigue because the AI's rules are like super strict. It's one of those features that seems really cool, but the actual impact and how it's applied is the question, right? So a lot of ChatGPT marketing, not a lot of substance. And the next,
hold on.
All right.
I just want to punctuate this with the end, because the reality check comes in this article where NCC, who doesn't have a product, it's just a security consulting company, said they conducted a security review and found it doesn't really work. And then these guys down here tried to use it. We're trying to integrate into Sentinel, and then they said, well, it helps students get answers to dumb questions, and that's about it right now. So it's a lot of hype.
Yeah, I do think the best application for it, before we get into the next one, is something that is always the same. Like, let's say you're using Keycloak or some sort of like authorization identification, and it knows all the users, and then every time a new one comes in, it's like, hey, I haven't seen this one before. What's going on? Oh yeah, they're new. Jeff's new, right? He's a new hire. He's just accessing it for the first time. I could see some value there. But anyways, the other part was it's getting integrated, and then ta-da, you got to upgrade.
Oh, it's out of date.
Yeah, it's out of date.
GPT-4 is in, and
you're integrated.
Blows away. Yeah, it's all over. Is it GPT-4 backward compatible? No. You just got to redo everything you're doing. So maybe hold off on the pounding cash into getting GPT-3 involved until you see how good 4 is. Apparently 4 blows GPT-3 out of the water, so maybe just hold on for a month.
That's what all the Twitter threads are saying. I got to test it out for myself. We'll
Cool.
see.
All right. So before we blast off, I rearranged the list. So big spenders next, because. So should we do?
We just have the one Ring. We have the ransomware of Ring before we get to the CVE's big spenders.
Ooh, oh yeah. That's hilarious. Okay,
I was going to say, I'm like, where are you going? So,
no, we can't skip. This is great.
Yeah, this is a developing story. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with this, but there is the rumor that basically ransomware group has hacked Ring. So if you can zoom in, ransomware gang, claims to have breached the massively popular security camera company Ring, owned by Amazon, threatening to release their data.
But then there's Ring, who's like, we don't see any breach or data. Like,
yeah,
they're like, yeah, they don't see. It's not clear what specific data they have access to. We don't have any indications that there's a ransomware event.
Yeah, it's also like the Ring are associated typically to a cloud service. So you can pay for the Ring service and they monitor your house. But if you were able to breach that and have the Ring's location and the account information that's associated with it, that'd be a massive breach if they could ever get a hold of that. But
it would be. It would be. I mean, they're talking about the 2019 breach of Ring, and it's like, but to say there's a ransomware leak, and it's like, it is funny that I'm starting to wonder if this is the new hack, is to just go, we're a big hacking company, by the way, we've hacked your data, and then you have to go, okay, disprove it.
Yeah, give us some money. Then they get to write the article, and it's like, okay, here's 50 grand, be quiet.
Yeah, right. Like you might get something just to get people to shut up, and the hackers haven't done anything.
True. That's a racket. Solid.
Yeah, that's a racket for sure.
Yeah. All right, now we got the big spender. Spend some money.
Yeah. Do it. Hey, cloud security vendor. Now, I don't know if this is Mitiga or Mitiga, but they got 45 million, valuing the company as over 100 million. And we talked about this before the show, and I was like, 45 million? That's like, wait, only 100 million if you got 45 million? That's an odd valuation. Yes, to which you said
they wanted to own a controlling stake in the company that basically just cleave their shares. Right? Which, I mean, it's fine. Series A values Mitiga over 100 million. Some of these VC companies are coming in early and they're recommending where and what to do. So I think that, these VCs are also getting built up with people who have sold companies. Sometimes it's better just to say, okay, here are all the shares, get a controlling interest, tell us what to do. Especially in rough waters in the next couple of years. Right?
Yes, but Dragon's Den, or whatever you guys, whatever the Canadian version of that is. Like where you walk in and pitch a product and they take all your equity for guidance. Yeah. It feels a little bit like it feels a little bit like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The founders are solid. I used to work with Ofer, Ofer Mayer is one of the founders at Synopsys, because we acquired one of his previous ones, which was Seeker Security here, which is not a company. That was a product bought from Quotium, but whatever, we can let that mistake go. He was hacked before that. So these guys are like serial entrepreneurs that have been churning out technology for a while. Seeker was like one of the and they're actually the founding fathers of like IaaS technology, like what Contrast uses, and like they were like some of the conceptual geniuses behind even that tech. So bunch of smart guys. Curious to see what happens with them.
Sweet. Yeah, Mitiga, and then that's it. Yeah, hopefully we get some more buyouts and when we come back in 2 weeks, because it's been a little quiet on the buyout front.
Yeah, it has been.
All right. Time.
Moving swiftly on.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Pow, Circle CI incident report. I like this report.
Yep.
I only just read it this morning.
Yeah, so I want to say we covered this, or this happened right after we went on break. right? Because this
Yep.
happened sort of in holiday season. And then January 4th, there was a report. And then this is the detailed write-up after. Pretty interesting. I mean, it doesn't seem like there was a big impact, but I think they handled it very well. Just kind of sucks that, you know, it became this huge thing. Everyone's talking about supply chain. They got a hack in the middle of holidays. But then it turned out that somebody hacked the two-factor. They had to rotate tokens for, I think, all of their customers, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. They had to battle
needed to be on that email
the
chain.
rate limiting. They had to battle
gosh.
the rate limiting on the GitHub API to get it done, which is hilarious because that's in here too.
Mhm.
I thought, so the how do we know it's still safe section was a little bit, okay. Like, to me, it seemed like an example, actually, of what you were saying in the beginning about the US mandate, about supply chain security and just being a little bit threatening so people pay attention to some of the softer bits of your security. This is a great example of where a company had given way too much power to one employee whose two-factor authentication got hacked to the point where they were able to impersonate that employee remotely and still get access, like dangerous level of access, to the point where they, even though the data they extracted was encrypted at rest, they hacked a process that was running to get the encryption keys out. Thus, there was the threat that they could decrypt the data at rest. Like, so I don't think they quite know how bad it is yet. But this is a pretty comprehensive report that says what happened and what they've done in response. I think anybody who's running any kind of CI/CD platform and has employees absolutely should read this.
Yep.
Like it's there's a ton of lessons in here.
For sure. Yeah, it was a remote employee, right? Like a new developer that got hacked.
I don't know if it's a new developer, because it was a developer that had access to production.
Oh, so definitely not. Had to be a senior engineer.
That's not a noob. Yeah, exactly. So it just seemed like, wow, this is pretty rough. And the malware that got onto their system wasn't detected. So there's a whole lot of clever things happened.
Damn. That is.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's a pretty big and pretty comprehensive attack.
Yeah, I'll give them credit for one. I remember, I think I read the CEO said, out of an abundance of caution, we rotated all the tokens for all of our users, right? Basically changed everything so that even though they had the keys, they couldn't decrypt it. Great. I think it's the right move, obviously. And they could have kept it more quiet. Instead, they probably had to write a very painful email and notification to their account teams. Woken up, it's like, hey, it's December 30th. We're going to need you to call your customers. Like that's just a terrible, terrible timing too. Also, what is it? Is there just a strategy towards hacking at that time? Like you like, hey, we have an exploit, but I'm only going to use it at a major holiday just because everybody's off and they can't respond as fast. Is that a strategy?
And
it seems to be a thing.
I think that's the thing too. Yeah, it's interesting because that would be like, guard is down. Yeah. You know, there's not a lot of people watching, not a lot of observability. Even if there is data being generated, no one's looking at it. Like
nobody wants to come into the office.
Nope. Get a little bit of hacking advice from Mike Foster.
There you go. All right, last one before
the holidays.
All right, last one before the double tool time. We got you posted this one. Big remote code execution. What's going on?
Damn right. Severe vulnerabilities in Jenkins server. So my read of this, it doesn't go into super detail. The video didn't load, unfortunately. I tried a million times. It sounds like, and here's just do the TLDR, what it says here. You can create a plugin that is, and put it in the plugin center that is malicious, that can be a cross-site scripting attack. Now, the only way I can see this in my theory, because it doesn't tell you directly, is that the metadata for the plugin itself. So when you go into the plugins and you look for a plugin and you want to find it, whatever metadata comes up in Jenkins, like you've used Jenkins, like it gives like a store, you could say install this plugin, right? That metadata is the cross-site scripting, because it shows you the name of the plugin, the description, all the stuff about the plugin, right? My theory is that you can whack some JavaScript in there and pow, you've got cross-site scripting. You're running code somehow, because it's obviously not vetting the details of the plugin or checking the details of the plugin for potential malicious content or data or essentially executable code. And as soon as it loads, and because it says you don't have to do anything, you don't even have to install the plugin. and the code will run. So I'm thinking it's got to be something to do with the way it displays the information about a plugin that is not being vetted in Jenkins.
Interesting.
It's cool. I like, actually, that's pretty cool attack.
Yeah, you got to put that.
Do I need to patch? Yeah, it's like, do I need to patch my Jenkins servers? Yep, is the answer.
Yeah, to all the Jenkins plugins, they should come with like SBOMs. Here's all the code. Take a look at it. Here's what you're actually implementing into your CI/CD process. I mean,
there you go. Anything that
should
has
be
like
there.
action, GitHub actions, anything where you're like doing third party on third party, there's way too much freedom across the board in these platforms.
Yeah, I kind of had a conversation with an analyst about signature, so signing and attestation, and then the forensic container checkpointing. And they're like, well, with the checkpointing, could you use it to like monitor container drift? And I was like, yeah, but why would you? If the container changes, just evict it. You shouldn't be monitoring this stuff. Yeah. It's like, but what you should do is have it so that if the container changes, you take a snapshot and then you evict it, right? That should be the sort of process. Is like, oh, we have a snapshot, we can use that, we can see what happened in the container, but then also this workload's done in production, right? Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. There's anyways, tool time.
Yep,
let's do it.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Yes, this is Steve's redemption arc. So we're going to start with Pulumi. For those who were watching last week, we gave a brief Pulumi rundown, but Steve's laptop gave out on him.
Exploded. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm running too many things. All right, so let's share up here. Let's be as quick as possible.
Sounds good.
Boom. All right. So we're talking about Pulumi. Pulumi is let's call it a CDK. I'm gonna talk about comparison between Amazon CDK and Pulumi a little bit. The idea here is that you can write code in any one of a zillion languages. You can see TypeScript, Python, Go, C#, Java, YAML. I don't know why you do that, but write it in a language you're already familiar with, and it provides you with objects that you can instantiate. Those objects execute a little bit like Terraform, I think, in that you can say up, down, whatever, destroy, and mid-program, programmatically, you can create logic around the creation of your infrastructure as code. Pretty straightforward. It does have a dashboard like this, where you log in, you're like, okay, this is me. These are all the different stacks. So you can create different stacks. So you can say dev, test, prod, and cool. You can manipulate them independently, and it tracks that, which is kind of cool. There's some integrations, which you would expect. I did call into question some of these, like, and how the suggestions were. Like, I clicked on GitHub Actions. Let me just see if I have it here. And it's like, okay, so this is how I can have a repo that contains some of my Pulumi Python code, say, and it will then execute and deploy just like you would for a continuous deployment environment, right? And it rolls down and says, here's an example pull request workflow file for Pulumi, to which I immediately looked at it and went, there's no way on earth I'm going to be storing AWS access keys and secret keys and Pulumi access tokens as GitHub secrets. No, I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. So all right, you can do it. So these integrations, when I clicked on them, all it did was launch me into the help.
Yeah.
And the help was immediately suggesting terrible practices. So I thought, okay, all right. Anybody, it's just saying you could have DIY'd that. You could have figured it out for yourself. The one thing I did like, though, was the Pulumi GitHub app that detects pull requests and make modifications to Pulumi sensitive files, and then puts comments into the PR that say these are the objects that are about to be changed by this. These are the actual infrastructure objects that will be modified. And I thought, okay, I like that. I was going to look at the help for it. The help for it is just about GitHub Actions, so I can show you that. Yeah, it pops a little resource changes. Or this is a bit small, but to let you know, right in the PR world, that these are the things that are going to get changed. I thought that's all cool. That's all cool. So getting to the actual, what does it look like? Where does it live here? So I've got a few that I was playing with. And you have to, I was going to actually do the whole thing from scratch, and I realized it takes forever. Like if you do a Pulumi new, I'm not going to let this play out because that'll be the rest of the show.
Okay.
But I wanted to show you, like, look at the support for this.
We're just seeing the one page, the Pulumi GitHub app and features. Yeah.
Oh, damn. All right. Sorry. Yep. That's my my share was only sharing Chrome. That's nonsense. All right,
Not
let me
your
bring this
window.
up.
Come on.
Yeah.
How does
Hold
Pulumi
on.
compare to
I'll share.
CDK Terraform? That's a pretty good question.
CDKTF. So I only use CDK CloudFormation, but how much different do you think that would be? I do not know that.
Mhm.
I thought if I were to summarize and say CDK Terraform versus CDK CloudFormation, it looks exactly like CDK. What I like is that the middleman between standard CDK and your cloud destination, whether it be Terraform or CloudFormation, means I can run security tools on it.
Gotcha.
CloudFormation maintains drift as well. So there's advantages, and I'm going to come on to that both TF and CF will give you that this doesn't give you. All right. So I've said Pulumi new. You can see it lets me choose all sorts of like every cloud is supported. It's bonkers. Even ones that they're like Civo, DigitalOcean. Yeah, I went to AWS Python and thought, all right, sure. You give it a name, call it whatever you want. It chooses the directory, so I could do that. Description, minimal. Give it a stack. Dev is the default. It could be prod or whatever, and then it generates. It takes a long time, downloads a bunch of junk, installs tons of Python, and you end up with this essentially, a little directory that has a stack YAML. But let me know if this is too small. The Pulumi YAML. It gives you a main. It gives you the requirements. It creates a little virtual environment for you that's kind of automatically used.
All right.
And which I like that. I mean, it is definitely user friendly. And then it gives you like a basic program. And this is just create a bucket.
Yeah.
And you can see it imports S3. It says bucket equals S3 bucket. Done. And that looks a lot like CDK. It's just slightly different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can go, all right, Pulumi up. And it's automatically pushing this into the SaaS.
Okay. And then the SaaS is the one that runs the.
You got it. The SaaS is connecting to my cloud. It tells me, do I want to create a plan from it? That's a whole other thing. I'll tell you about that in a moment. I could say, no, I just wanted to see what it would do. You can say details, and it gives you a more declarative version of what's about to happen. So I like that I can see the ACL as private because that was important to me because it didn't tell it not to be. Some basic security details are present. And that's cool. So I'm happy. I can say, yeah, do that. And it doesn't take too long. It says it's creating 2 objects, but that's because it's creating 2 Pulumi objects. There's a stack that gets created back within Pulumi, and then Pulumi creates the bucket. So if I go back to my Pulumi over here, I should have a dev stack in Pulumi test. And I do, create a couple of minutes ago, and I should have a resource in here. My first bucket is there. And then somewhere in, if I have here, I should have a new bucket in addition to my existing code pipeline bucket, of course. That's not the one I just created. That just is my first bucket. And it's like, okay, so I created a bucket in like 2 seconds. And there it is. I'm like, all right, I like that actually.
Very quick.
I took it's pretty fast. I took it to the next level where I was in this one here. Let's go back and just show you the opposite of that, right? You can do, let me destroy, and it's just, and it undoes the whole thing. It looks like it's maintaining state, you know what I mean? Like it's like it knows what to destroy. It's like, and you're thinking, okay, cool. Now I saw another guy do a video on this where he did more complicated things, like I've done here, where, so I don't know how visible that is, but maybe it's easier if I do that.
Yep.
Got a little more into it. And so now I'm creating a bucket that has a website index HTML, which I've created.
Okay.
I'm actually changing the ACL type to public read. and associating it with the source file, creating a second bucket just for kicks. And then I'm provisioning all of those. And that actually, in terms of, I think I like your autocomplete, but sometimes you backfire. So it creates that. It actually, let's say, yeah.
4 to create. Okay. Details.
See, there's all those.
Nice.
Yeah, not bad. I can see that I have a public read and a private by default in my second bucket, which I can use for logging or something like that if I want to make that association. And then pow, my bucket, another bucket get created, which is cool.
Pow. Yeah.
And you can extract like extra details based on it. In fact, you can see, right? It gave me this URL, which technically should work. Maybe it won't backfire. Maybe it will. There we go. Hi, C9K.
Sweet. There you go.
I've got a static website that I built in like no time at all, and I can destroy it and create it and update it in GitHub. I thought, actually, just for giggles, that's pretty cool how fast it was for me to do that. The problem that I have heard is now that I've got this, like just in terms of ease of use and cloud, what do you call it, coverage, it was pretty cool. I still couldn't figure out why I wouldn't just use CDK if I was only using AWS, because it supports TypeScript, Python, Go. Like it's the same language set.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is if you're multi-cloud, or if you want to avoid vendor lock-in, or if you want to use different languages, right? Like
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, leave something in the comments if you under. Oh yeah, and actually, Yaron, who's watching, I think you saw it in the. Yeah, it is. I would imagine it feels like Pulumi's coverage of just everything is a plus.
The strength. Yeah,
is a strength for sure. So imagine I'm in here, right, and I'm not aware that this was created by automation or Pulumi, and I'm like, what's this other bucket? This is stupid, and I just delete it.
It's gonna get brought back up.
It's not.
Oh,
you predicted that one very well. Okay, so and that's the issue. So back here, if I wanted to create, if I say I was going to modify my program, I'm probably going to screw this up on the fly. But if I changed, say this one here, and I wanted to make maybe if I even try to destroy it, it might lose its mind. Let's try that. But it doesn't deal with its own. See, it still thinks the other bucket's there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's tough. Because it's just verifying its state. So like Pulumi hasn't done a reconcile to like update where it is. So there's a little bit of a disconnect in between the two.
There is a state disconnect, and there's an example I saw where I was able to, if I messed with everything enough, it spat out like Python, like it gave me a Python stack trace.
Yep.
Because it just wasn't working. I think the example I did, which I'm not going to do now, but I went in and changed the second bucket to be more like the first bucket, where I put the index into there as well. So I made a change to a resource that no longer existed. So rather than delete something, it went and tried to update it, and it went vomit.
It's not there. I'll say that the easiest way to get around this is that Pulumi itself is a specific IAM user in AWS, right? And so then any changes can only be made with that key and authentication. So anybody goes into AWS, you can't just go edit and configure things in the UI. It has to be through Pulumi. That would be probably the easiest way at a company-wide level to lock that stuff down so it never happens. And I'd honestly argue that is best practice. It's like if you're going to do infrastructure, you're going to use Pulumi, it's the only thing that's making changes, right?
That's a good point. So I do have a unique role just for Pulumi.
Yeah. And so then you would lock down your role.
I'm right. Yeah, my role is too powerful.
Which that's the point. Like, oh wait, I have root. I can screw up this application. Like, kind of.
Essentially, I just destroyed that as root, even though Pulumi is an identity within my Amazon. Yeah, that's a good point.
I completely agree. You should be fired. But the IAM roles in the cloud are always finicky, right? And so it's like, how much do you give? I think if you're going to use like a Terraform or a Pulumi, the whole point is that you have sort of this root user that's there just to fix a fire, just to put out a fire, but then everything else should be as code, CI/CD process, using the cloud, like, because it also has to force the user to actually use the tool. Like if you're a team and you're adopting this, why am I going to let you go into the UI? Might let you do it in dev just so you can play around, figure out what features you want, and then try to pull that information into Pulumi. But staging and prod, anything that's serious, it's got to be through the app, right? I mean, it's a powerful app. So why would you let people use the UI?
It is pretty cool. Let me. There's one thing I didn't show you, and let me just see if I've still got it. But there was a way of creating now a plan, which, let's say Terraform again.
Yep. TF plan.
Let me see if I have the example of it here. Essentially, what it does is export JSON. It has a preview. You do Pulumi plan, and it just turns out JSON that looks a little bit like more like CloudFormation.
Okay.
And then you can deploy the plan afterwards. So you can add an intermediate step that allows you to potentially run security checks on it, but it's not in a format. This is where I was like Terraform versus CloudFormation, but it's like, well, if I use CDK, I can generate the intermediary step in a known language that is commonly used in the industry and has lots of security tools that you can look at it with. So I was like,
yeah, good point.
And it's all in beta anyway right now, that whole plan thing. But it's just it got me thinking as to what's the point. All right, so that's the end of mine, because I know you've got another one.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes, so we're going to do Kubeshark. If you have any comments, questions about Pulumi, if you want to come and give a Pulumi demo, how does Pulumi play with checkoff? That's a toss-up for you.
It does not. It does not. It does not. So the reason I'm looking into Pulumi was to see if we could add it to checkoff. The answer is yes, because the new plan method is declarative method that checkoff could ingest and scan and create rules for. We're contemplating migrating all the AWS rules over if there is demand. If you have demand, let me know.
If you have demand, let me know. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. All right, should we get into it? Kubeshark. So I'm not the API wizard. This is a little bit out of my realm of comfortability, but this one got brought across my radar thanks to Steve. Kubeshark, the API traffic viewer for Kubernetes, and kind of a nice dashboard. I like all the color coding and all this stuff. 1.4 million downloads. This is all open source. They do not have a paid platform yet. Is that correct? That's my understanding. Although I would not be surprised if somebody's going around asking for funding right now, because we love our dashboards. So how do I deploy it? This is latest release of the CLI. Basically, it's that simple. Install the CLI, start capturing traffic, and look at it locally. Very, very painless to install. I'll give you an example. Install and run. Again, that one command, you can use Homebrew. And then you basically just come in and hit Kubeshark tap and go. So that's where am I?
Oh, beautiful.
Install. There we go. All right. So basically, I ran Kubeshark. Where is it? All right, there's a lot going on here. KS tap. So the first time I install it, I do brew. It goes fine. Then it says, hey, once you update it, run this command to update. So I update it. And then what does it do? It automatically installs a shortcut for me, a prefix, KS, and tells me exactly what I need to do. Basically says it's already running. If you want to clean it up, clean it up. This is just using your kube config to go and pull the information. So it's easy to set up. It goes and sets up a pod using your permissions, which is why I actually had to run this on GKE and I couldn't run it on OpenShift. Just an FYI. I had to go and set it up. Just because OpenShift is like, nope, we're not letting you do this with admin permissions. Thank you for being secure and annoying, OpenShift. I appreciate that. But yeah, so we get to this point. I've set up Sock Shop. I could post it in there if you guys want to go and try to break it down. But basically what you end up getting is you get, wait, where am I? 3, there we go. You get this dashboard. So this dashboard is local. It's pulling all that network information from the pod that is in GKE right now. There's a Sock Shop. And listen, the service map needs some work. So they have this very, very pretty one that's on the help thing that shows you everything. This is a lot. So as soon as you get any sort of somewhat significant workload here, the service map gets a little crazy.
Crazy.
Crazy. Like I said, I think it's like had too much coffee. It's like me, it's just twitching a little bit. But yeah, it's not the smoothest, does need a little bit of work. But I think what's cool is streaming live traffic. You can look, so right now it's looking at all these namespaces. Realistically, if you wanted to look at the app, I would just say KS tap and then the application that's in SockShop, for example, and it would just look at these ones, right? So this is looking at also all of the Cube system agents that Google has. So not very targeted. But again, I question the scalability of this model where you're using the CLI and then you're going in there because, again, there's connectivity issues. You're constantly downloading. As soon as you get into any size cluster, it's going to be an annoying leap. But I thought what was really cool because, let's say you want to search through different APIs with a new filter. It's connecting to Hub. It's pulling it. And there's no catalog. So maybe I just say, okay, well, maybe I just want HTTP, apply. It's going to go and pull that and say, oh, okay, there, it's all there. Now, /health is one. So maybe I do /health. And I thought it was really interesting too, because you just click this and it has a cheat sheet. I don't have to go to a help page. I don't get redirected. It's like, here, this is an example right here. HTTP /catalog. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to do health. And I'm going to apply that. That should come up. There we go. And so we can see all of the health checks that are going on. Now, how we can save all these. So this is all streaming locally for me. It's coming onto my local computer. You can save them. You can parse through them. Not exactly sure how this is, what the use case for this is. It's traffic viewer, but it's not a traffic enforcer. It's not a traffic identifier. It's just, here's all the traffic on it. And then if you have some other applications, you can go through it. You can see a TCP relay, do some load testing. You can also download the PCAP. So there's a lot of stuff here. I'm not exactly sure what the use case is. If you know, let me know. But I do think it's a very interesting. Honestly, the setup was easy. The install was perfect. Getting started and getting going and looking at traffic was pretty straightforward. I'm assuming with all the 200s that are coming through after the viewer, you could start to set up like, hey, if there's a 400 error or 404 error, like I need to know this right away. You could look at the total amount and then figure out where the traffic spikes are and adjust for that, right? Like if you have 99.9% 200 and then 400, you can write graphs to show how efficient it is. But again, there are already tools that do this, so I'm kind of curious. Maybe this is just a free version that somebody can iterate over. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's like from an all right. So is it essentially amazing observability without real credible actionability? Like,
yeah. And I think it's talked about it's a traffic viewer, right? So it's traffic viewer. Here's all the information. Here's the error codes. Here's the APIs, right? So it's showing what APIs are getting hit. I think if you exported all that data, let's say I wanted to look at health and I just exported that one part, I could probably see what APIs are getting hit the most for the application. If I were to like put it into a spreadsheet and then, maybe run some filtering on it, right? But I think that's got to be the next steps if you're this tool. It's like you have this dashboard, but the dashboard is not really useful. What you really want is that search querying function. So you can say KS tap, and then you can tap with the function of querying, export it to a JSON, and then do it over an hour, and then tell me, right? And then tell me what the traffic was like for the next hour. If you could do it so that it's just a CLI, it's like, here's the traffic. Here's some of the spikes that happened over the last hour, maybe some recommendations as to how to format your microservices better. I think that's a pretty good value for an open source tool. But again, it's just a viewer, so you have to kind of know what you want to do with the tool. But it's lightweight too. I'll give them that. Super easy to set up. So if you're looking to sort of do some A/B testing, get your traffic data, filter through it, it's a pretty sweet tool.
And my understanding too is that the guy who wrote it is absolutely looking for feedback.
Sweet.
So it's another one of these projects which is like, get involved, because it's like you say, it's lightweight, it's great observability. The query system does seem super cool, particularly if you can make the query system change the visualization.
Yeah. The service map, I think it's always a nice to have feature. I don't think it's particularly useful. I think it'll probably be the last thing that gets updated. I think it's just taking the traffic information and getting some actionable details. That's going to be the next step. So in terms of feedback, what do you want to see? I definitely think that the creator will want that stuff. I wonder if Kubeshark leverages eBPF. I would not be surprised, especially because it's going and installing a single pod on the nose as daemon set, and it's just capturing network traffic, lightweight, easy to manage. I need to go through the code base, but I would 99% think that that's the case.
It's going on, but PCAP, like it's like Wireshark.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it using? I don't know, but yeah. So interesting, really fascinating stuff. And the guy who has written it, I am going to send him this video because he knows we're doing this.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, good job. Don't listen to any of my crappy comments. All right. Yeah. So thanks for watching the show. I'm glad the Pulumi demo works. Congrats, Steve. It's your lucky day, St. Patty's Day. So
yeah. All right.
Perfect.
I go grab a Guinness. It's 11 a.m.
Yeah. Go grab a Guinness. If you're at Boston Pizza downtown Toronto, they're doing laser engravings of Guinness cups. So go get yours. You buy a Guinness, they laser engrave a glass for you. Boston Pizza downtown by Rogers Center. Until then, or until next time, in 2 weeks we'll be back. We're not here next Friday. We'll be back the following Friday, and we'll have a brand new demo for you, more CVEs and more fun stuff. Steve, take it away.
All right. I'm going to be doing the Equinox. Equinox is the one. They have an open source tool. It's like called KubeRadar, I think, and that's what we'll be looking at. I remembered it.
Perfect. There it is. All right. KubeRadar, 2 weeks. I'm Mike Foster. He's Steve Jaguar. Signing off. Happy St. Patty's Day.